It's me, Ingrid INFP, and we're going through the Autism Handbook by Katarina Sörngård, a Swedish book for late diagnosed autistic people, by a neurotypical, but we're still getting some kinds of tools from this book. This chapter is about flexibility, which is basically everything that has to do with planning, organizing, rigid thought processes, and executive dysfunction. So there's quite a lot here. First of all, she talks about why this with flexibility is a problem for autistic people. It's often that autistic people have a rigid way of thinking because we need things to be sort of the same because the world is unpredictable and we feel a loss of control because of that. While neurotypical people can kind of go with the flow of life, autistic people get extremely anxious from that. And so that's why we try to keep our life kind of the same. Then she talks about how it's hard to automatize routines for autistic people, which kind of goes against what you would think, but it's kind of that it's difficult to gain control of your life if you don't have those routines as an autistic person. Then she talks about perfectionism, how autistic people are more likely to be perfectionistic because they are more likely to hone in on small details. It's important to have realistic goals and not try to be perfect, but rather to be functional, good enough, rather than the best, because otherwise the risk is us going above and beyond on a task at work or a task at school or at home, going above and beyond when everybody else is just doing the bare minimum. So we should more strive to do the bare minimum rather than always overexerting ourselves. So it's not good, for example, to do something at work and then take ages doing it because you're being so thorough that you actually miss the deadline because of that. In that case, it's not a functional behavior, it's actually, working hard is not always working effectively. So Åsa is one of our example people. She is used to going above and beyond on her studying for her tests and writing papers for her university degree. And so she has to write a paper and she decides to use this first strategy, which is just making it good enough. So she she chooses something that is less important, and then she works herself up to more important tasks that she can kind of half-ass. Okay, I learned this quite early on, actually, through a Tumblr post. It was a Tumblr post that said, you don't need to full-ass things, you can half-ass things and things are okay. And that actually really helped me through medical school, because otherwise I wouldn't have managed through medical school, had I always tried to go above and beyond. Another thing is also that at my medical school, you didn't get grades, which actually really changed my mindset a little bit, in that there was only passing grade. There was nothing above passing grade. So it was either fail or pass. So I was just striving to get pass. I didn't need to work towards a higher grade. But I understand that it's harder if you have grades that are gradual, because you would like to have the best grades as possible. However, what happens here with Åsa is that actually by half-assing it, she actually gets a good grade anyway. And that's because she first honed in on what is the goal of this specific task. So she has this paper to write and she hones in on the subject matter. And that is actually really good because that is what is asked for by the teacher. And so once she has completed that goal of answering the question that this task required of her, then she practices on letting it go and not adding things to it. So she does that, and then she lets it go, and it feels not great, and that's okay because it's not how you usually do things. And then when she's about to give in her paper, she asks her friend if she can read through it and just check if it's okay. And it ends up that the friend thinks that it's okay, and then she gives it in, and the teachers give her good marks. It's hard for autistic people sometimes to like feel our feelings, to like know what we are feeling. A lot of autistic people have alexithymia, so you might also have a hard time of having that feeling of completion, like you have done this and it's done, you don't need to add to it. And this can be easier for like simpler tasks, like, you know, put this cup, like put this bowl into the microwave for 30 seconds and take it out. That's a pretty simple, clear instruction. However, you can have a task that is much more vague. So Jarmo, one of our example people, he has a task at work to clean out the cupboard at his office. And he doesn't know where to start. You know, it's like, well, how good is it supposed to be? And so he asks his colleague to show him what is supposed to be done. And once it's done, he asks his colleague again to look at his job. And if the colleague says, oh, that's okay, then he takes a photo of how the cupboard is supposed to look like. And he looks at that photo whenever he has to do that task again. So that's a way to do it. So ask for clarification, like, oh, is this a shelf that I need to clean up in this cupboard, or can I leave it as it is? That kind of thing. Of course, it's sometimes a lot of neurotypicals won't answer our questions, but it's a start. Then we get into how to time management. Okay, she talks about it as special interests, but this is just time management for everything, you know. This can be useful for neurotypical people as well, or people with ADHD, or just in general. But the thing is with autism is that autistic people often, not always, have a special interest. And she does say that it's often the case, but not always. However, we do get interests that we often hyperfocus on, and therefore we lose a lot of time on that. It's good to engage in a special interest. However, it shouldn't be to the detriment of everything else in your life, like food and sleep and your social life and your work, you know? Maybe you can make concessions on certain other things, but it has to be your choice rather than just, time has flown by. So Jarmo plays video games a lot. He likes to play World of Warcraft, and that's a special interest. And the thing is, he often plays very late into the night, and then he doesn't sleep at night, and then he wakes up in the morning and he's late for work, and so it starts affecting a lot of things, you know, his sleep, his work, and also now he has a friend in Anders, and he wants to spend more time with his friend, and also he wants to spend more time on exercise, because that was one of his New Year's resolutions, let's just say. And he realizes that he also has an internship, that's his work, and he also has forgotten to eat sometimes because he has been playing and lost track of time. So if he could do whatever he wanted, he would play video games 12 hours a day. But he realizes that this isn't going to be possible. So he thinks, maybe I could play video games 6 hours a day. But he can't really see it in front of him. So that's why it is good with this graphic. It's like a pie chart with the 24 hours of a day. And first you put what is very important for your physical needs. So sleep is important and meal times are important. Now you might take longer or shorter time sleeping or longer or shorter time having meals, but try to count that in and put it into the circle first. Then you have household chores, which you have to do so that your house is okay. So that is another thing that you can put into the pie chart. Then you've got your work. I mean, the work, you have to put it into pie chart. And the time it takes to get there. And then you've got other things that you want to add. So for Jarmo, he wants to have a social life where he meets his friend or other people. And then he has some time for exercise. And then he can put his special interest, which is gaming. And then he realizes like, oh shoot, if I want to actually fit everything in, I can play a maximum of 4 hours in a day. So that was a big eye-opener for Jarmo. Another thing, we got Eric and his wife Lena. Eric is a teacher and he really, like a university teacher, and he's really interested in research. We've talked about him before. He goes to work, so the work takes most of his day. He doesn't need as much sleep as Jarmo, and that's how he is, so he doesn't put as many hours. He also has to put the time to work. He also has to take time for tasks at home, because his wife has been nagging him about doing the household chores, so he needs to put that in. He also has his children, so he needs to put time for the children. And then he really wants to study articles at home and work from home, but he realizes that that's not really going to work out for him, because so he'd like to put a lot of time on that, but actually he realizes that he can only have 2 hours in a day to do that. And if he wants to have time with his children, and if he wants to have time to do the household chores that he has been neglecting. So I think that that's a pretty good strategy to like see where the time like disappears, and how to focus on things that are actually meaningful to you. Maybe the playing for 6 hours a day is not as fulfilling as playing like 4 hours, but like, meaningfully, it is sad that you need to limit that amount of time, but there are other priorities in life that like you need in order to survive. You need to sleep, you need to eat and all that. Then we've got learning to plan, and there's a planning through the ABC strategy, which I've talked about actually in my ACT driving license for daily life with ADHD. So I'll link to that video. So basically you want a flexible planning strategy, but you need to have a planning strategy in order to limit the amount of stress. So first you write a checklist of everything that you have to do. Unsorted, just long list. And then you prioritize that list with the ABC strategy. And A is things that are acute. Usually these are things that you have procrastinated on and that really need to be done today. Often it's like paying bills or, something that you have to do now. B are not emergency that you have to do now, but they must be done in like the next few days within this week. And C are things that are not at all emergency, just like they should be done at some point, but not now, So, and those things, maybe the C things can be left to the side and let go. So Jarmo, for example, he realizes that he hasn't showered in a few days, and so that's priority A is to shower, but also he has forgotten to pay his bills. So that is also priority A. Another thing, then we get to priority B. Things are that he has to book a time to the laundromat. He has to go do the groceries, he has to exercise, and he has to throw out the trash. Then in his C, he has that he needs to buy a new chair for his office. But that is not as important. He can let it go. And we've got Åsa. Åsa has to study for a test tomorrow, so that's priority A. She also has bill to pay, also A. She also has to buy a present for her partner Kajsa, which her birthday is tomorrow, so she has to buy it today, so priority A as well. Then she has priority B, which are that she has to clean, she has to write a report for next week, and then she has priority C. She really feels guilty about not visiting her grandmother, but unfortunately she has too many things on her plate right now, so she can't do that this week, so it's priority C. Then, immediately after doing that, you put it into the calendar. So I have a weekly calendar, a little bit like this one, which is like every week of the day, like the 8th day of the week, like put in horizontal, like vertical, I guess. Horizontal is different. Everybody has a different way of seeing time. For me, it's better to do it this way with like 1 week at a time. I don't have times on my calendar, but they have times on theirs. I usually put like morning and afternoon, and then I have at the very top I put like what can be done at whatever point during the day, but during that day. So I often I'll be like write library, and then I'll realize, okay, library is only open in the afternoons on Sunday, so I'll have to put it as afternoon. And then I have to buy clothes online today, but because it's last day of the sales, but I can put it at the top of the list because it can be done at whatever point during the day. That's my system. Everybody has a different system. But yeah, so it's important that you put the A things today and the B things later on that week. The C things can be let go. The only thing is that if you don't do the thing that day, you can report it to the next day and try not to feel too guilty about that. So I often read or journal, and then that often gets reported to the next day, where I read and journal to the next day instead. And it's kind of a system that works for me, and I cross it out when I'm done, and I either cross it with a cross or I cross it with a check, and I can check them out of checks. Then it's important to look at the calendar at least in the morning, at lunch, and in the evening. Unless you're not home, then you don't need to check it at lunch, I guess. But check in the morning so that you know what you're about to do, and you can kind of plan your day. Then at lunch to check how is it going, and then in the evening to check okay, have I done everything I had to do? Should I send one of more things to the next day? So do a kind of evaluation. And then by doing this over several weeks, you'll start realizing what is an okay amount to ask from yourself in a day. And if you have a hard time knowing how much a thing takes time, you can basically log the time that certain things take for you. And you can pick a certain day and then decide, okay, I'm going to use my timer and do this task and put the timer on and see how long it takes. And then you can have a certain idea of how long things take, because we are often time blind. I don't know if time blind is the right wording nowadays. We have probably some other kind of word, but this is good for ADHD, but also good for autistic people. So picking things out of the dishwasher, Åsa counts it down and she realizes that takes 9 minutes. Going to the stores cost her 80 minutes. Eating breakfast takes 30 minutes. And the tip here is to only use alarms like as an extra, because it's so difficult to remember to put on and to forget to put on an alarm. It's also a stressful thing if you have an alarm, because the alarm will stop you, like then you also have to put reminders quite far in advance before the thing. So if you're doing a task, it can be good to put an alarm before you're doing the task, like to do the task, and then when at the end of that task, when that's supposed to be done. So then she talks about how it can be difficult to come in time to things. You're always late. Sometimes it's because we have a hard time with doing tasks at home, and other people hyper-focus as well and then get stuck on a certain thing. We have this thing, our autistic inertia, that makes it difficult to, move on from one task to the next. So one of the strategies, it's something that I do a lot, it's counting backwards. So, if you're going to be to a place, count backwards of how, like, when do you have to get up in order to be ready? So Jarmo has to go to work, and then he needs to see all of the parts that are part of his morning before he gets to work. So he has to go to the bus stop, he has to be on the bus, he has to he has to take care of making sure that he eats breakfast beforehand, and it takes a whole amount of time. And then he realizes that the travel time is a total of 48 minutes, and he tries to give himself a little bit of extra time. So he decides that he needs to leave home at 7:30. And that's for regular coming to time in time for things. It isn't easy though. I am often late, let's just say. Then there's when things don't happen the way that you want them to happen. And this is often that somebody cancels on you and you made plans. It can be really dysregulating when that happens, because then suddenly you're locked with a bunch of time that you hadn't plans was going to be in your calendar, So Jarmo wants to go rock climbing with his new friend Anders. And the thing is, Anders says that he can't come, he feels sick. And so Jarmo uses the strategy problem solving that we had in one of the earlier videos, which is that the problem is he can't follow with Anders. What can I do now? And so he puts different solutions, and then different pros and cons, and then he rates them from 1 to 10, and then he decides. So he decides, one of the things is that he could go home directly, but the problem is that he doesn't get to develop anything, and it's just how he usually is. So that's not the best solution. He decides in the end that he's going to buy new shoes, and that's actually going to be kind of a good thing for him to train on, because he has a hard time going to stores, and also because he needs those shoes in order to go mountain climbing. So he has shoes, but they're like old shoes, so he needs newer ones. And then he feels, she does explain this kind of thing that I think is a little bit similar to PDA, pathological demand avoidance, or persistent drive for autonomy. And she actually explains it without using PDA term, but she says that often autistic people feel these expectations as something that is hindering them, rather than, and it's better to come to the conclusion yourself and to actually do it because you want to. But it's hard to get to that point. So Jarmo, by deciding that he needs to buy these new shoes, he feels that he has control over his life. And he's had the problem that I've also had, that I would often feel like the pressure from my parents to do certain things. And then I would feel like angry at that because they're deciding something over me. But because I have a hard time taking initiative, they would often decide things for me. So Jarmo has this problem, but he feels that now that he's made the decision to buy shoes, then he doesn't have this expectation from anybody else. Then she starts talking a little bit about when the interest takes all your time, and Eric has a hard time taking initiative, and also he has a hard time seeing everything around him. He has a hard time seeing that the dishes need to be washed and that kind of thing. Because Eric doesn't see these things, he doesn't take initiative to do these things, and his wife Lena petitioned for Lena to divorce her husband. Lena says that he's often like a teenager, and I kind of I'm angry at Lena for letting things go like this, and for instead of leaving him, she just starts calling him names pretty much, and it makes me really sad for this situation. But they decide that they're going to try a new strategy, and the strategy is called the home fixer, and it's a democratic strategy where both parties get to say what they think. So we have a tendency to overestimate what we do and underestimate what other people do in the household. It's important that we have rules for this task, and that the rules are that you can't shout at each other, you can't interrupt each other, and you can't act obnoxious. Also, everybody should be able to speak, and everybody pitches in what kinds of tasks there are and how often it should be done. Then you need to start compromising on how many times this needs to be done, and also who does it. And Eric starts seeing that Lena does a lot more tasks than he does, to be honest. Lena thinks that you need to change your sheets every single week or they're not clean. Well, Eric is like, no, actually it should be done once a month. And that really stresses Lena out. However, they do a compromise that it should be done every 2 weeks. And Lena at first feels kind of disgusted about being in dirty sheets, but then she starts realizing that it's actually quite okay, because then she doesn't feel herself stressed out about the laundry pile piling up. So it's kind of a win-win situation in a way. And then Eric puts all these things directly into his calendar over when these tasks need to be done. Some tasks need to be done every day, some tasks need to be done once a week, or more seldom. So he puts 1 week at a time into his calendar, and so he has to take care of putting the children to bed every other night. So he writes down the nights that he has to do that. He also writes down when he needs to drive his son to a football practice, and when he needs to cook dinner, and when he needs to sort the sort the dishes or the clothes, and so he writes it all down. So that is really good stuff, I think. Then we talk about special interests and the problem with sitting still. A lot of special interests are about moving your body, and that's good. Some special interests are, though, about sitting down. And so it's important to have daily, not just having exercise, but also having less time sitting down, because that has been shown in studies that the time that you're spending sitting down is also bad for your health. So you can have like an office chair that you stand up sometimes, that you can like go higher or lower, that kind of thing. Take short pauses and take a few steps. For me, what I do at work, not recommended for all sorts of work, but for me, is that I go and get myself a cup of tea in the kitchen at my workplace. And that is on the other side of my workplace. So because my room is like furthest away, so I go and take that little walk and I come back. And when my cup of tea gets cold, then it's time for me to do that again. So in between patients, I do this. And it looks really weird. A lot of patients probably think that all I do is drink tea all day, but it is a way for me to get my steps in. Also, I need to sit down when I'm at work. I can't do the standing up thing. I can't concentrate as well. However, I do, my printer doesn't work at work. So I also have to, every time I need to use the printer, I need to go to the reception desk. So that is also a bit of walking. If I can take the stairs, I take the stairs. In my apartment, there isn't any elevators, so I walk up a few flights of stairs. Nowadays, I only have 2 flights of stairs, but there was a time where I was living up 6 flights of stairs, so that's a lot. Then she talks about that she goes through stimming. I'm not going to talk about what she says because stimming is important, okay? She talks about how to change a stim to something more socially appropriate, which I think that we've all done if we're late diagnosed autistic. And that's pretty harmful, I think, to learn to mask your stims. Maybe I think that late diagnosed autistic people probably have more of a need of discovering their stims in like safe environment, like at home or in front of people that you know well. And I think that is more regulating. Then we get into routines, and I think that we're going to end the video here because there are a few more things to talk about. Please tell me if you would like, so there's going to be one extra chapter on this, and please tell me if you would like a chapter on her last chapter, which is about advice for family and friends and partners of people who have autism or are autistic. She uses another kind of phrasing. I think that I'm going to end with just one chapter more, which is going to be about routines and how to automatize routines. And that will be the end of the series. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.